There we go.
Okay, great. Thanks for recording that, and welcome everybody to the rig. Thanks for all the suggestions that people have given us for new intern projects. That's the agenda for today. Just to kind of go through those and see what we might be able to do with students next year. I'll let people know the link to the notes is in the chat. We aren't going to close on, yes, no, for sure we are or aren't doing any of these projects today. So this is just a chance for you to explain what you had in mind and why a student would be a good choice, and anything more detailed about the project than that, so we have an understanding of it. We have 20, where are we now? 23 to get through. So assuming everyone's here, which they're not. So I'm just going to go through them in the order that people entered them. And if the person is here in the meeting, please speak up. And if you're not, we'll skip that one and we'll follow up with that person later on. Okay. Okay, so the first one is from Rashid, who I do not believe is here. So we will skip that. The next one is from Eric, who I think is here, right? Oh, no, Eric's not here either. The next one after that is Dan Walsh, who is also not here. Mo Duffy, also not here. Raphael Bazzoli, I'm sorry if I'm not saying that right. Okay, we have a lot of suggestions without people here. Sorry to make you sit through my saying everybody's name, but that brings us to Joel, who is here. So,
oh, wow, I get to go first. That's surprising. All right. Well, I mean, I guess I could just talk about. I don't have like slides or anything.
No, that's not necessary, and we couldn't make it through slides anyway. This is just to explain the general idea of what you want to do and why you want to involve students, and why it would be a good project for Red Hat to be doing.
Okay, yeah, so I guess some background on what has been going on. We have been developing and running an intro to Linux kernel development class at UMass Lowell, and currently, so it's a graduate class. I'm not sure if it's linked on our website, but I can send like here's the course catalog that was posted in I guess the Etherpad thing, right? Stuff here. So there's that. There's a link to that. There's UMass Lowell course catalog. So right now we're finishing that up. We got 12 students. We had a couple students for a few semesters, and finally we kind of scaled it up to 12. And now it's a graduate class, which we didn't even think we would. We were hoping for a direction study. We didn't think it would actually give us a whole class, but they did. So that's pretty good. Yeah, and so we're finishing that up now. People are doing final presentations. We are trying to, yes, yeah. We're doing final presentations. So the idea, the whole program, I guess the KDLP program, that kind of came out of this class, which originally came out of like Jeff Brown's IoT class, where he wanted to improve it on Raspberry Pi. Long story short, now the program is KDLP, kernel development learning pipeline, and the goal is to develop new talent in Linux kernel. Because as definitely a lot of people in Linux kernel are, they're nearing retirement. That's the nicest way to say it. A lot of these people aren't going to be around in 20, 30 years, and that's the way it is. They're great. They're doing great work, but it's just at some point where there's going to be significantly fewer engineers. So we'd like to try and bring more people in while they can still learn from the wisdom and experience of the very experienced people who worked at all these other companies like DEC and et cetera. So what we've done in the past is brought some of the people in from the class in as interns to work on various like Raspberry Pi related things. And from there, we recruited a couple of them full time. Some of them got scouted by other companies while Red Hat was in a hiring freeze. But one of them wants to come back. It's pretty good. He's actually coming back to do a guest lecture today in the class. Fun fact. But anyways, so overall, we try to bring people in and develop their skills on, by working with the Raspberry Pi and adjacent stuff and other kernel stuff. It was kind of broad. We were really focusing on Raspberry Pis originally because that's kind of what we had started with. But more recently, and I think especially kind of given some of Tim Kramer's comments last week and some other contacts that we've made, I think it makes more sense to try and sort of broaden the focus to like ARM work and like edge related stuff more generally. Where Raspberry Pi is kind of a good start, but I think kind of bringing together, different people who are working on various edge-related initiatives and may have kind of intern-level work to try and develop, kind of talent in the ARM/edge space, which could include some Raspberry Pi work. I mean, Raspberry Pi is used as a testing board. For example, Denis Alexandrov, is using the Raspberry Pi to test, to do automated testing of like the speed of kernel boot time after various patches from the Clear Linux repo. And he was doing it on the Raspberry Pi because that's the test board that people like, I think, really contacts who's working with Eric Curtin and some of the guys in the automotive group, they were using that for, as a testing board because the Qualcomm boards that they were using to actually, that are actually the production boards were just, they were expensive and hard to get, and, you can't just play with them in the same way you can play with the Raspberry Pi. So, that's one example of the projects. So I'm thinking overall more to expand the pipeline to include different ARM-related projects more generally to try and develop talent in that space. That's key area of focus for Red Hat, and kind of one of their strategic directions that they're focusing on, especially in terms of hiring, and especially kind of in this more difficult economy. And I guess on the other side of things, another sort of exciting development is that we got our course on the Linux Foundations platform. So I'll post a link to that. This is pretty new as of this week. So we'll have kind of, our plan is to have, we'll have the UMass Lowell class in the spring, and we're working on getting that through. And then we'll have people register on the Linux Foundation, the LFX platform, so they can also kind of get a credential on there that they can use on the resume, saying that the Linux Foundation, they'll have their name on there saying that they graduated, and then we can also use that platform to enroll students, like external students, and kind of manage students from other colleges or really from around the world who are interested in learning the basics of kernel development. And so, there are existing mentorships. I'm just trying to pull up the project. Okay, I'll put it in the Etherpad.
Okay, I'm going to have to stop you, Joel, just so we can make it through all the rest of them.
Okay.
So basically,
yeah,
student internships for people to be project mentors to work in the kernel area, and they need some exposure to kernel experience already. It sounds like we should write up the projects a little bit more, but that's the general proposal, right?
Yeah. The general proposal is trying to bring students in from these various training programs and find them kernel experience, and ideally focus it in areas that Red Hat is focusing on, to try and train talent in that area and the kernel more generally.
Okay. The next one is for Docker Compose, which doesn't have a name, but I'm guessing it's Preeti. Is Preeti still here? Don't see her. Okay. Jeff Pullen. Nope. Okay. Prom is here. I know that.
Yeah, looks like Joel and I are the bedrock here. This topic I have is sort of addressing using AI ML to help people with disabilities. So we're we have a couple of internships, and the one that I'm asking for help here is more of a soft. It's not typically a kernel or software related thing. It's more of a how do we get started on figuring out the cost benefit of using existing laws to justify hiring or putting together a team that will allow us to solve the bigger problem of improving the accessibility of computers to people with disabilities.
So it's an internship that's focusing more on the economics as opposed to the software.
Right. The thing that got me started here is as in Italy, we have Italian laws that require us either to hire people with disabilities or to pay a fine if
Right.
you're a certain size. So, my thought is, why pay the fine when we can hire people with disabilities to improve our software so that people with disabilities don't are generally helped in a much bigger way. So it's a sort of a virtuous circle of hiring people to help themselves.
Okay. And are you interested specifically in doing this in Italy, or are you
No,
thinking
no.
multiple countries?
Basically any place that that we could leverage would be great.
Okay.
The reason I put like grant writing down was I took a look at some of the like Department of Education grants, and it looked like the people applying to them were, universities plus an industry, a university plus an industry.
Yeah.
So I think we could hold up the industry side, but as far as like my ability to do grant writing and pretend to be a university, this is where like a sociology department might be able to,
Yeah.
basically want to partner with us to do this sort of in a bigger thing. But first, the only way we can actually get this through is if we pay for it. So
Yeah.
this is answering the big question: how do we try to do the background to see that is it viable? Can we pay for it?
Okay. Yeah, we do have a relationship with the BU education group, and so they might be interested in this kind of thing. So that's definitely got potential for us to follow up on.
Also, UMass Lowell might, I think we have a relationship with them. And
they might also, although I don't know that they do the research piece of it as much. Maybe you can give me a pointer, Joel, to who might be doing the research piece of it there.
Yeah, I'd have to think about that. I'd probably call Fred or something.
Yes.
So we have another easier internship, which is just doing the sort of technical side of this. It might be closer to Joel, like what you're used to dealing with UMass.
Yeah, I think I sent you some candidates. If you have anything starting in January, I've got people.
Not in January, but maybe in the summer January I won't say no. Just
I sent you 3 resumes.
Okay. All right, I'll take them.
And there's some on this. If you look at the spreadsheet, you can see who some of them are interested in the fall as well. So,
right.
Let me know.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. The next one is from Taylor Schroner Biggs. Nope. Okay. O'Neill Joseph.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
Sorry. Hello, everybody. I do actually have some slides. I'm gonna make it quick. This is hope nobody minds the slideshow. So hold on. Oh, hold on. Let me get it full screen. Okay. Okay. So my basic project was what I call Homer, and reference to the Greek orator. And so the idea is to take so what is Homer? The idea is you could use text to picture technology, neural radius field technology, and the idea is using large pre-existing data sets. You can convert multimedia into text media, which is incredibly small and requires very little bandwidth. And then with that, the idea is using the idea is then you could then transmit that data to areas that have low bandwidth or have limited resources, with the idea of it being re-rendered on the other end. And the idea of this would work is because both sides would be using the same text to picture technology and text to picture database on each end. So in essence, you're converting media into text and then back into media, and because each endpoint has the same has pretty much the same engines on each
Can you move
endpoint.
over there so you're not on camera?
Oh, hello. Yes.
Sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
I just wasn't muted.
Okay.
Keep going. No,
So the principle behind Homer is just simple. Communication is passing. Communication information passed with a shared reference index. So if I'm talking to somebody who doesn't have the same references I do, information is lost. While words provide context, most situations could be discerned from images and audio. And since humans naturally create internal pictures, when they communicate, this system would make the internal process of you creating pictures becoming an external verifiable process. So in essence, I know that everybody's getting the same message in a sense. Let's see. So here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about, and I made a little example. So regardless of most people's languages, they can understand these two pictures. So a simple prompt like a tank in New York is 16 bytes, but it gives you a bunch of information. And on the other end, like another prompt would be like F-35 over Grand Canyon, and you kind of and that's only 25 bytes, but you get a ton of information. So for example, Moby Dick is 200,000 words, over 200,000 words, equaling 1 megabyte of compressed text. I mean, could you? The idea is, would you be able to use this type of technology to potentially create pretty much equivalent to a movie that's only 1 megabit? That when it comes to being transmitted is only about 1 megabyte size. With the idea of both ends will just re-render the underlying, would just re-render the movie.
Uh-huh.
So this is kind of like what a diagram would look like. So you would have like on the left side, you see what would be like analysts generating the information. It goes through some kind of machine learning engine. There's a core source of truth, which is at the data center. So they would determine what the algorithm, that's where the algorithm would work, and that's where it'd be maintained. And then it'd be able to once the whatever, let's say it was a video. Once the video was converted into text, it would be transmitted. On the distant end, it'd be pretty much a copy of the same engine with the same reference database on each of these individual units, and they could just recreate the multimedia on that distant end. And the same thing would happen vice versa. So and on the distant end, on the right side, you see what would be like so the target of observation. So the same thing could happen the other way. So like multiple units or multiple like units of could see the same object, make their interpretation, and send the information back the other way. And so the reason I think this would be cool for Red Hat, because it's emerging technologies. I mean, it's text to picture is really new, but I do think that applications go far beyond creating art and stuff like that. I do think you're looking at, because one of the biggest things I talk about is what's the difference between human fidelity versus machine fidelity information. Like, I mean, there's a point of diminishing returns when it comes to like files and pictures and stuff, because at some point your human senses can only receive a certain amount of information. So to me, like creating a system like this would then allow you to like I said, like pretty much turn what are gigs, potentially even gigs and gigs of information down to megabytes. And then you could use this stuff like this type of information could be very useful in this type of project. This type of system would be very useful in limited bandwidth situations where you're talking about military applications, where you're talking about civilian emergency applications, where you might not have the infrastructure to send multi-gig streaming video or anything or stuff like that. And it's different, and it's slightly different from compression software because, obviously, it's human. It would be human readable, so you could just read the text, but it would just be a lot of everybody saying the same. Everybody's saying the same thing, especially when we're talking about multinational situations where, like everybody has a different language. Maybe you can't communicate, but you could still. But the system would be able to generate pretty much a video for. So you could pretty much transmit your information, your communication through a media through that kind of media source. And I don't think it's really the hurdle isn't high because a lot of the technology already exists, or at least exists to the point where you could actually like test out a prototype system. It's just a matter of like putting together the components. And that's all I have.
Do you have any pointers to other people who are doing research already in this area? Because you referenced that a lot has already been done.
No, not the actual. So like for example, Deep AI is a text to picture platform. There's one called Marble Sculpture. So the creation of text to picture, that's already been done, but the idea of using it to reduce the size of communication, that has not been done. So obviously communication. So that's what I'm saying. Like in a sense of like the underlying tools are already there, like Deep AI or Marble Sculpture, those are already there. Those two pictures I pulled from, those were from Deep AI, and it was literally like those forward prompts, and they created those pictures. So the underlying technology is already there.
Right.
It's just the application. This application has not been tested, and so I figured it'd be an interesting experimental type of system, and really establishing what a framework would look like for that. There are open source text to picture platforms that already exist.
Yeah, right.
And so we'll be using one of those.
Right. So the reason I was asking was not so much from the point of view of developing software, but if there were professors in the area who you knew of, who you had talked to or who had worked with or anything like that, then we could reach out to them. It sounds like what's different in what you're proposing is taking the idea from the image area into the networking area and using it in a real, kind of a demonstration mode in a network where we've got edge and core.
Yes.
Okay. So we'd either be looking for some researchers who are interested in that from the networking side, or some other systems people who are interested in that for other reasons, as opposed to like the people who actually do the ML part.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. And so some of the potential target audiences would be like the military, because they're always complaining about not having sufficient bandwidth to support.
Yeah.
Especially when we talk about multimedia components. And like I said, like people like FEMA, who also have the same situation, like in disaster areas. Yeah,
limited bandwidth. Yeah,
limited bandwidth environments where they want to be able to move media around without having the heavy bandwidth burden. Those are the situations I was thinking something like that would be. I'm not sure who I'd reach out for those. Maybe DARPA, but that was just the idea. I was just saying if.
Okay. Yeah, we do have a partnership with Northeastern, who does a lot of these mobile networking, low bandwidth situations. So probably that's where I would go, absent any other input, to ask if they were interested in this as an idea to prototype.
Okay.
But if you come across any other, universities or people to reach out to, or prototypes that you've seen, let me know, so we can follow up on it.
Okay.
Cool.
So wait, would you need to create a system to have deterministic generation of images from text, or like were you thinking it could be kind of general? I'm just kind of curious.
So my question, so my thing is human deterministic and like machine deterministic are two different things, because like at the end of the day, like if I send a message and we both get the same, like for example, if I send a message to 30 people and they all get the same, if I send a bit of data to 30 people and they all get the same message from that data, then it's deterministic. It's human deterministic. But I mean, machine, like if they each come up with different SHA values, the machine would be like, that's not deterministic. That's not deterministic. That's not deterministic. You get what I'm saying? So my idea
needs to be approximate, right?
Right. So this idea is like, it's like if you get the approximation high enough using ML, get the approximation high enough that every human gets the same amount of information, then you've succeeded in transmitting information, even if it's a fraction of the bandwidth.
That's really interesting.
Thanks, Sunil. And I apologize to everybody that you have such short time, but we will follow up on these. Can we go back to Brett? Sorry about that, Brett.
No problem. I'm hardly going to use my time. I'm not sure how much it is. This will be short. This is not a we project. This is an I project. So just take that into account. I've been using my in the OpenShift part of Red Hat. We have a shift week, and we have a hack and hustle days periodically. So those are when I've put this project together. This is an extension of some work that we've done to enable Java programmers to create controllers on Kubernetes, which I don't know if you're familiar with that, but they're also called operators by Red Hat. It's essentially an app running on Kubernetes, and they take the form of what a system administrator would do. So a system administrator would install, in this case, the Presto database, which is something that rolled out of Facebook a couple of years ago and has become a fairly large open source project. Facebook threatened to sue them, so they became Trino. But it's got over 8,000 devs on their Slack workspace, and those are mostly all Java speakers. So whereas most controllers and operators are created in Go currently, Red Hat has been doing a lot of work to make it possible to create those in Java. There's Quarkus, that's a Red Hat project. There's the Java Operator SDK, which is a Red Hat sponsored project. And so I wanted to use those technologies to create a purely Java operator to control this database, hoping that would catch on with this community, which is mostly all Java speakers. So there are Golang operators that do this thing now, but being a pure Java one, I'm hoping that it'll catch on as a project with that community. And I just saw your announcement looking for interns. The intern would have to have limited knowledge, just a basic Java programmer type of intern. So a computer science student, something like that would be great. And then I can take it from there in my shift weeks and hack and hustle Fridays to kind of get that person up to speed on Kubernetes and operators and the things they would need to advance this project. And it would just be useful for this project to advance. It does have some interest from the Trino group, which is great. But I'm still a relatively. I have something working. It installs the database, but it's not doing sort of the more advanced things like actually managing the database, doing things that are important that a human system administrator would do if they're managing a database on a cluster. So there are all those list of requirements that could get added to this project with time. That's it.
Yeah, so that sounds like a great introductory project we have a lot of students who come to us with the Java experience and not any of the Kubernetes really. Would you be also introducing them to that, or would you want them to have had some Kubernetes?
No, I
I
can
mean,
show.
you put it in
I can show. I can show them everything as.
Okay.
Yeah, those are just preferred. Those are preferred skills.
Okay.
The only required is Java, and
Okay.
I can take it from there. Yeah. Back. Oh yeah. I can definitely take it from there, and I think that the time spent getting someone up to speed will be worth it on the project. So.
Cool. Yeah, we have a lot of projects where we have students trying to do things in the cloud environment, and this could be very useful for them too.
Great. I'm going to be rude and probably sign off after this.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, that's fine. There's
Kind of
no,
late my time. So.
that's totally fine. There's
Okay.
no obligation for people to stay.
All right.
Sorry, I missed you before.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. And I also miss Chris Tate.
Okay,
Sorry,
great.
Chris. I don't know what
I was
happened
gonna-
to me. I must have scrolled past an entire screen.
Yeah, I wanted to do Java operators too. That sounds really cool. But my project involves our existing project with Boston University developing smart technology for traffic lights. And we already have a running application that can simulate traffic lights. What would be really great is to work with an intern, to have another developer on the project who can take a simulation of cars and people on a road and send that to a Raspberry Pi application deployed with the upcoming Red Hat Device Edge when it's available, as well as Microshift or RHEL 9 in the meantime or something like that. And send those messages of people arriving at a traffic light in a certain direction and then getting that signal and making it change a light on the Raspberry Pi with some connected traffic lights that you can buy for really cheap. So that's what it would be, is taking our existing simulations and putting them on actual hardware so that we can practice building smart devices with our existing application. That's it.
Sounds like a great student project too. Sounds like you and Joel have a lot in common as well.
Oh yeah, the Joel already
Raspberry
mentioned
Pis,
the
yeah.
Raspberry Pis and the Edge. So this is
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah. Yeah,
On the
so
same
maybe
page.
this can turn into one of those specific projects. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, we could potentially, overlap
Write up some
interns. Yeah. Do something together.
Cool. Okay. So I'm going to go back to where we were. I think Michaela, you were next.
Yes, thanks. All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Michaela Jackson. Just want to give some background. I'm a technical writer, excuse me for that. I'm a technical writer for advanced cluster management for Kubernetes. And I'm looking to leverage our open source project, Open Cluster Management. So I'm going to share my screen really quickly. There are actually no slides, but I do have a section in Miro that I could also share later on. All right. So as of now, well, can you all see that okay?
Yep.
Okay. So as of now, like I mentioned earlier, Open Cluster Management is a project of ours within Advanced Cluster Management, but I also became privy to this project called AgStack, which is a project. It's also an open source project, and it's a digital infrastructure for agricultural ecosystems. AgStack can be used to create, publish, and use agronomically relevant software and data. So with AgStack's effort, they're mainly helping the ag space go through this digital transformation. There's a big pain point with farmers where like it's a whole bunch of documentation, or at least there's a lot of information from the cooperative extension groups, but their farmers don't necessarily have access to the data. And so AgStack is working to make it more efficient and create a tool for the farmers to use. What else? And I volunteered as a writer on that side. And so I do know that the need is for contributors to come and help develop different solutions within AgStack. So the how, I would say to teach students, the goal is to introduce and teach students what open cluster management is, how they could use it and apply that framework, or essentially integrate that framework within AgStack, and then just continue to help in that global effort. And with leveraging our current relationship with Shaw University, I imagine students from majors like computer science, agriculture, math, marketing or mass communications and everything, so that students could get an idea of, and really a clear understanding of what it's like to manage projects in a corporate space, and also just be empowered to add their voice or add value to open source projects, and then hopefully get professors to introduce open source technologies to the students, and just continue to branch out and be industry leaders.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah, that's the main goal right now. And I've just been, myself and other IBMers have held workshops for students, kind of just like to do a soft introduction, but we plan to continue on with these workshops to build a continuous relationship rather than like a contractual thing. So that's the thing that I want universities and other stakeholders to understand, is that like, it's not a contract, like you don't have to do this work, but if you start it, like, thanks for contributing, because somebody else that's interested could take on and continue to move forward. So I know the AgStack project, both projects are still in its early stages and still being developed, but they will be developing open APIs. And yeah, I look forward to seeing this come to fruition, or like seeing like who else can help with this effort and bring more interns over.
Okay. And do you see the main effort here being working on the AgStack tools, or do you see like it's actually trying to do something that's a demonstration with a farmer, or are we not sure yet because it's too early in the project?
Yeah, I would say both. But it is still pretty early. I imagine, for example, so like if we had a user story, I would imagine a student from ag to provide the background information or the research information on whatever specific whatever specific crop the students want to study, or whatever solutions that they want to come up with. So yeah, it's still early. But I do have like just a list of running ideas for students to work on certain projects, or just, I don't know, find out more about what problems farmers are facing.
Okay.
And leverage the computer science majors to help actually develop applications, and math majors could help with the data processing and machine learning if that's, something in their field. But yeah, it's a few moving parts, but the vision is coming along.
Okay, that sounds interesting. I know there have been projects at Red Hat before to work in agricultural technology too, that were shown in our big yearly demonstrations. So we'll have to look back at some of those and see who the Red Hatters were that worked on them. See
Absolutely.
if we can connect you up with them. That's
Thanks.
great.
And I also shared this Miro board with you. So if you need more info, it's there.
Oh, okay, great. Is that in the write-up that you submitted, the Miro board?
Oh, no, I'll add it in there though.
Yeah, okay. If you could add it, that would be great. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time.
Okay. And then the last ones we have here are from Mulhern.
Hiya. So yeah, there are 4. 2 are about Rust. One is about storage, and I think it's pretty flaky. It just came up right before it in our team stand up, and I thought I'd add it. And the other is very AI and natural language processing, and it's about Wikipedia. So I'll do that one first. So the idea with Wikipedia is to give up on it as a reliable reference. And so there are some people who want to restore it or make it better, but I just want to go the other way entirely. And they make the reliable reference the edit history, which is interesting. And so the idea is in the edit history, you look for inflection points, places where the person's past suddenly changed due to their present, essentially. This is in the context of biography, but you can imagine it in the context of any article. So often, because of news, there will be a flurry of edits, and the article will change substantially as a result of those edits. And so what I postulate is that those inflection points in the person's history will be discovered, and that a user could use Wikipedia to find out this fact instead of to try to use Wikipedia to discover the true reality. But they would, and so the idea we have is like a browser plugin that can scour the history, discover these inflection points, possibly even point out to why this person's past suddenly changed, and then present the Wikipedia user with some way of comparing their past history with their new revised history. And so there's a couple things. One is a really basic problem, which is that if you look at Wikipedia edits, they're so full of formatting information that you can't really extract. They're all often very small, and they're full of formatting information, and so you can't really extract the semantics. So what you want is a way to look only at the semantics and to glob a lot of edits together to see what the change was. And also, the sort of natural language processing aspect of this is to find out the change in tone, if it so exists. People do try to do this. They call it like sentiment analysis.
Yeah.
And so you might say, oh, previously this person was good and then they became bad, and that's why their history changed from Wikipedia's point of view. So wholly in AI, NLP, and web API sort of project.
Okay.
All right. So that's that one. The 2 Rust projects that I'm proposing, one is very specific, and let me tell you what number it is.
Probably 20.
Yes, thank you. Good, yeah. So this one is very specific because it just there's just this, the Rust language is designed has these 2 kinds of polymorphism. You can choose them, and they are not totally equivalent. So the dynamic polymorphism is actually strictly less expressive, which means sometimes you may select it and find that you can no longer use it as your design extends. And so in situations like that, you might want to transform it to the static kind of polymorphism that Rust also has to gain as much power, as much expressiveness as you possibly can. And the cost from dynamic to static is code blow up, because everything everything that you're going to be compiling is now fully realized because there's no dynamic dispatch on the type of what you're dealing with. And so my hope is that there would be a way to find out how to automatically transform from one to the other, because unfortunately there's also motivation that I can see to transform from the static approach to the dynamic approach. Or fortunately, perhaps for the idea, because if there was only a reason to go one way, then you might just stick with static all the time. So something somewhat similar was done a long time ago with the Java language. Long ago, Java had a very simple object-oriented model with very simple inheritance, and then it went for parametric inheritance. There was a lot of discussion about how to do that. Once that was decided, though, there was work done to transform code from code that used the simple object-oriented inheritance to the parameterized, to the new parameterized type. So it could like take advantage of, say, parameterized data structures that were parameterized on the types that they contained, and thus be less liable to type errors. That was the motivation. And this was implemented and actually placed in Eclipse. It was one of the transformations that you could do on Java in Eclipse. Last I checked, it was still there. And I could say a little bit more about the techniques, but unfortunately the techniques were using set constraints, and I don't know if it would be applicable. I haven't thought deeply enough about the problem to know if it would be applicable in the Rust case. But it would be the first place I would look.
Do you think these are potential follow-ons to the Rust code work that we were doing with Columbia? Or is this a broader thing of?
I think it's very different.
I know it's very different as a topic. I just meant, is there anybody in particular in the research world who you'd want to be working with on this, or is it in the early stages? It's an idea right now, and
it's just an idea. Yeah, I don't know who would be good.
Okay.
I haven't met anybody through previous interactions who I can think of.
Okay.
But as with
follow up on that one for sure, and there's tons of interest in the Rust topics for sure.
Yeah, as with the project we're working on now, I think everything I'm proposing is kind of PhD student level.
Yeah, clearly. But I mean, we do all of them here, so that's fine. That's good.
The other one is the one about borrowing and ownership. And the reason that's vague is it's because it's so, the decision of whether to borrow or own is just such a chronic decision-making part of writing Rust code. And so it's vague because it's a chronic problem that comes up with C. You have to decide whether this is the pointer which actually owns the code, owns the thing it points at, and is eventually going to, say, release the memory. You have to make that decision, but it's not part of the type system the way it is in Rust. So the problem is still there in C, but in Rust, you have to make the decision, and the compiler will make you stick with it. You can't forget, and have some other place, some other identifier free the memory or something like that. But so it makes the problem very formal, but you're still stuck with it. And then when you change your mind, you have to change a lot of types. And so this is a very highly abstract PL question. Yes. But it would be neat if someone worked on that, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's an analysis, and then once you do the analysis, what would you do about it kind of project.
So yeah, so maybe I should have said PL Genius is what we really because I it's a little hard even for me to know how to think about it properly. I know that every time I confront the question, I just sort of dither and work. So then the last one is just about storage. And so this is really more Stratus focused. We're wondering about techniques for suggesting a proper arrangement of storage devices. And there's just a wide number of considerations because each storage device has each storage device is a little individual and you have to make sure they'll work well together. And so they have properties like sector size properties, but then they have each one has a size. You want to wonder if it goes properly into your RAID array that you're thinking about, and so forth and so on. So then the question is, is there some generic sort of tools that people have already used to think about similar problems? And that would get you back into AI again.
Mm-hmm. I wonder, Larry, is there any follow-on from what Parul has been doing into this kind of thinking?
Not that I know of, but I'll reach out to her. I tried to get her to attend this, but
okay. Parul is a PhD student at BU who's done a lot of work in storage and thinking about.
No, I don't think Parul has. You're thinking of Orr?
Oh, sorry, Orr. Yes.
Yeah.
God.
No. So I don't know. She graduated, and I don't know where. I haven't talked to her.
So it's the successor to her that we're. So let us dig around a little bit on that one, Mulhern, because it is an ongoing interest for the systems people at BU, definitely. But I'm not sure which student right now is thinking. If it was a new student, this would be too early for them to get involved in. But if there was another student in the area who had been working in the area for a while, it'd be a good match. Okay. I see Dan is back, and I apologize, Dan, if I missed you. I thought you dropped out there for a minute. You have
no, I actually showed up late, so.
Oh, okay. I thought I had seen you and then lost you and then seen you again. So do you want to talk about your proposal?
So I put up two proposals. One of those I've actually talked to Larry about. So there's a tool inside of it's a tool underneath Podman and potentially underneath Cryo and OpenShift that allows you to launch KVM separated containers with a fairly simple command called krun. And my proposal was that we merge krun and the work that's being done on the unikernel for Linux, and then figure out how we can get those two to work together. So that my goal being that I think unikernel for Linux is, if I have to install a machine or install a VM, it becomes a fairly high entry point for most users. If we could get unikernel so they just worked inside of OCI containers, then all of a sudden I think we open up a whole opportunity to actually use unikernel for Linux in the mainstream and be underneath. You'd be able to run it inside of Kubernetes clusters, inside of containers, running on edge devices. So what I'm looking for is someone who understands the unikernel for Linux and that could work with us to make it run with other people within containers easily. And it'd be myself and Sergio Lopez would be working from the Red Hat side to instrument this. So that's the proposal there. A secondary proposal is probably a little easier to work on, and that's right now Podman has implemented pretty much almost everything that Docker can do. The one thing we get pinged on a lot is that we are missing compose support. And so the basic idea would be to work with a student to Podman currently can translate a Kubernetes YAML file into running containers on a Linux box, and basically to put similar support for Compose to be able to do similar. So it'll be really a lot of Go programming, understanding understanding and learning about containers, and then looking how we can implement this both it would be on Macs, Windows, and Linux boxes.
So when you say a student, are you thinking about an undergrad or are you thinking about a grad student?
I think it either have to be a, like a senior project or grad student.
Yeah. Most likely senior project.
Yeah.
It would be good, but there aren't a lot of seniors who know Go still.
Yeah.
So more likely a grad student, I would guess.
Although Go is not as hard to learn as Rust is.
No, it's not. But yeah, if they don't know it at the beginning of a summer and they're trying to do a project, it's pretty hard.
Yeah. And basically, they'd be working with the entire Podman team.
Yeah. Okay. And we've certainly had good luck there in the past. Okay, did I miss anybody who's here who was wanting to propose something as opposed to listen to the ideas? Okay, cool. So the research group will follow up on the ideas that people talked about and the ones that they submitted without being able to attend. And we'll post the link to this recording for other people to look at. So thank you so much for this. This is fantastic to see how many cool ideas people came up with, and I really appreciate your time to tell us about them and attend the meeting. So next year, hopefully we'll be following up on some of these as real projects, except for Tom and Joel, who are going to go off and find a student in the next few hours, I think.
Oh, you found them. You just gotta pick one.
That's right. Okay.
Perfect timing, by the way.
Thanks a lot, guys. Let me know what happens if anything does happen there. Otherwise, we'll work on it for summer.
I mean, with the meeting, you just hit the hour exactly.
Total coincidence. Yeah, so Jen, if you want to stop recording.